You're listening to the Sokan Community Podcast. Your favorite source for gaming, film, and internet debate starts now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sokan Podcast. I'm your host, T, and with me, defying the pattern that we'd established, are Leo and Sihl.
Oh. Lee. Oh.
Ill? Sill? It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Mine doesn't work either, but you gotta make it
I mean, at least you have two syllables. I'm just Sill.
That's
I'm just
fair.
T.
Just say it doesn't work.
All right, Jace, we tried to steal your bit, but you win this round.
You win this round.
This weekend is actually going to be Sokan's 9-year anniversary. It is the anniversary of the foundation of the Knights of Sokan, and through it, what would become the Sokan gaming community as a whole. Happy birthday, Sokan.
Yay! Streamers, party balloons. Happy birthday.
My daughter is 9 years old. It is hard to imagine this gaming community is the same age as my youngest child.
My little brother is 9 years old.
Your little brother? Good gravy, Sihl.
We have there's a
much
large
gap
difference.
Is there between you?
It's a large difference.
This might be personal, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Was your little brother a happy surprise?
I don't know. I think that's totally... I have two little brothers. He's the younger one. I think it's totally possible. Also, they have a different father than me, so...
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's the general reason for the gap.
That makes a big difference.
Familiar complications.
Yeah, right. When my wife and I got together and we started planning for a family, I was adamant that I wanted 3 children. And we had 2. And I'm happy. Like, no, we're good. We're done. We're good.
Yeah, that makes sense. Three's too many.
My mother used to pray that I was twins, and then when I was born, she went, never mind.
Thank goodness.
I used to tell my little brother that when my parents had me, I was so awesome that they wanted to have another. And then when they had him, he was so terrible that they both got fixed, and we have no other siblings. I was not nice.
My mother did admit to me at one point that if my brother had been the sibling that was born first, I would never have been born at all.
That's probably the case for me and both of my brothers too. If they came first, I would not exist.
My parents my mom confided that in me too. She told me that I was a great little kid, so I was only... let's say I wasn't necessarily lying to my brother when I told him that.
See, this is the real reason for different sibling stereotypes, because if we weren't the way that older siblings are, we would just be only siblings. Only children. All right,
You're
whatever.
darn right.
I've had my flub for the episode.
Oh, there'll be plenty more. There's names coming up.
Well, alright, tonight we'll be diving into sequel talk with Crash Bandicoot 4 and reports of a live-action Lion King 2, as well as discussing Amazon's game streaming service to compete with Stadia.
Stadia.
85% on Metacritic, 98% from Google users, 8 out of 10 on IGN. The reviews for Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, are pouring in and so far overwhelmingly positive. But the first question we have to ask ourselves is this because it's genuinely a great game, or is it thanks to the psychology of nostalgia? On October 2nd, the newest title in the Crash Bandicoot saga released, and in the short time it's been out, has been praised as a fantastic sequel, which sounds like an oxymoron. The thing is, Crash games aren't super complex, deep, or emotionally driven games. Do you think recreating the feeling of a game mostly fun for its gameplay is inherently easier than doing so for more story-driven games?
Yes.
No. I don't think so. Go ahead, Sihl.
I mean, the gameplay isn't hard to recreate, I don't think. I mean, maybe, you know, if it's a new developer or something, but if you're the same people that made the original game, you just basically do the same thing. I don't think Crash gameplay has changed much in its existence, except for the terrible racing games, which have totally different gameplay, but they're racing games, so duh.
This is a new development team, though, isn't it?
I don't think so. Is it? Hasn't what is it called? Toys for Bob. Haven't they always been doing Crash?
I heard Naughty Dog did original Crash.
Oh, you know what? I think that might be true.
It's also entirely possible that studios have merged, changed names, or the IP has changed hands.
I know that Toys for Bob has been involved in some of the previous Crash Bandicoot games, at least. I don't know if they're the primary developer, but they've been on it, at least. Regardless, it's a fairly simple gameplay plot. You know, you spin, you jump, you hit boxes, and you know, punch things.
Play reverse Pac-Man.
Basically, yeah.
I mean, I don't disagree. Let me preface this by saying this is not my style of game. I definitely prefer the kinds of games that are more complex, deep, and emotionally driven. However, I do think there is a certain, I don't know, skill in designing these kinds of games to be entertaining to the kinds of folks that like these kinds of challenges. There are unique puzzles, and there are, from everything I've seen, the what's been retained from the original Crash games, and I think it was Crash 1 through 3 are being respected with this one, and then all of the other Crash stuff is just kind of being dismissed. And this is, you know, assuming that Crash 1 through 3 are the only games in existence.
That's pretty accurate.
Again, these aren't my thing. I haven't played any of these games. I don't know any of this firsthand. Only that the reviews I've listened to and read have praised this. What is it? Games by Bob is the developer?
Yes. Or Games for Bob.
Games for Bob, for not only capturing the feel of the original Crash Bandicoot, but also adding a number of modern elements to the game that didn't exist before. There are like apparently certain masks you can get now that'll do like various super things, like reverse gravity, so that you fly up to the top instead of fall to the bottom, and a couple of other interesting things that do help you solve some of the puzzles in the game. So I don't know. I don't know. The bad reviews of other Crash games, I think, is evidence that capturing the feelings of these kinds of games isn't necessarily easy to do.
I don't know though, because like I think the games that have bad reviews is because they did something different. I don't know that firsthand either. I have not played all of the Crash games. I played one of the ones that's like the worst reviewed, which I think was I don't remember the exact name of it, like Rise of Cortex or something like that. Which I've read is one of the least liked Crash games ever made. But like, it seems wildly different, at least in like base story and basic gameplay, I think, than the other games. It's like they just did something different. People didn't like it, but this game seems to be recalling back to the classics, and I think that's just what people who are nostalgic for those classics want, which I totally vibe with. I'm fine with that, but like, I don't think it's that hard to do.
I can't help anytime I hear someone use the word vibe, I think of the character Pigeon Toady from the movie Storks. I don't know if you have seen that character.
I have not, but Leo, let's vibe.
Oh, he's so funny. But I always picture him in my, oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were vibing.
Don't mind me, it's just my my doomer lexicon. That's the word I was thinking.
I like the word vibing. It just, I cannot not think of that character. Oh, he's so funny.
And you know what? One phrase indicating an entire character and invoking that feeling is a very doomer lexicon appropriate trait.
It's also very nostalgic.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. God help the 90s kids. Right. Well, speaking of the way back times. It's been 11 years since the Crash series released a new game. Sort of? In 2010 and 2019, developer Toys for Bob released Crash-themed racing games, and in 2017 they released the Insane Trilogy, which was a remastered edition of the 3 biggest games. What do you guys think keeps the hype for games like this alive for so long?
Nostalgia. 100% it is. Like this classic era of like Naughty Dog early PlayStation games, they're all just super like fun gameplay. They're all super simple, and they're just puzzle games really, above all else. And they're just nostalgic. I think that's the only thing really keeping them alive.
Yeah, you're not wrong in nostalgia for some. But honestly, an aging player base is only going to pay so much to continue revisiting the same thing. And granted, I don't know. There's probably lots of aging player base people willing to pay for certain properties, but there's also a fair amount. Like Crash Bandicoot is a PlayStation exclusive, right?
I think so.
It was at one point.
Okay.
If it is not now, it was at least at one point.
I thought it was a PlayStation invention. Like it was, I don't know if PlayStation I don't know, whatever. It was only on PlayStation.
It was originally a PlayStation exclusive. It seems that the Insane Trilogy and the 4th game, as well as the racing games, are on Xbox, according to Google.
Oh, maybe that's what's wrong with them.
Like how one of us used the Google machine.
All right. Well, I was gonna say then, but it's wrong then. It's not a PlayStation push to continue bringing it to the forefront of like with advertising dollars and stuff. Nostalgia then in that case sounds like the reasonable course.
Well, I don't know. There's some fairness to what you were going to say, that it's maybe not specifically PlayStation, but I feel like Sony rather, is probably the biggest part of it, because all of these games from that early PlayStation era are, they're kind of all connected in a way. A lot of them are Naughty Dog or similar developers that were originally PlayStation exclusives, because at the time it was the dominant console on the market. So I think they probably are involved in pushing it.
Yeah,
nostalgia for PlayStation.
Yeah, and in fact, like I remember admitting during one of our tea times that I used to be a PlayStation fanboy.
How dare you?
Look, I've learned the error of my ways, but there were a bunch of PlayStation exclusives that I was a big fan of. But the truth is, like, Crash Bandicoot was never one of them. Like, it never struck me. Again, like I said, that's just not my style of game. I just don't. Like, in fact, the thing I didn't like or don't like about even a lot of modern games, my biggest criticism is that it just feels like a quote console platformer. And Crash Bandicoot is a console platformer.
Oh,
like
100%.
That's all
it absolutely
is. So, no, it's not my jam. But I do think for those who kind of cut their teeth on video games, I think for me personally, it probably came at a weird time where like I wasn't at a young enough age to appreciate, just the simplicity of a game like that. While I was still, very much into console gaming, I still preferred more complex games. So nah, it didn't ring any bells for me. I have no idea why this thing is still alive, to be quite honest.
I think you mentioned earlier about aging fan bases. I think there is credit to give these games that, like Crash Bandicoot, Sly Cooper, Spyro, these, early PlayStation nostalgic games, they're all very cartoony and campy. So while the people who played them when, we were younger, we want to feel that again because of nostalgia, but it also does work for a new generation. Like, you give these games to your kids and they'll enjoy them. It's exactly the kind of thing a kid would want to play, I think. That's probably helping.
It is actually, these games specifically feature pretty prominently in my memories of, my dad actually was the reason that I got into the gaming like that in general. So I think the fact that, like, I played them with him is probably a fairly shared-ish experience, whether you're the parent in that scenario or the child, or whichever one you could be now. There's something to be said for that.
I had the exact same experience. I was the child in that experience with my dad. We played Jak and Daxter together.
Oh man. let me weigh in as the old man in the room.
It was like, well, as the father.
My parents never played video games with me. They didn't care for them, and they didn't like that I liked them.
Really? That's shocking.
Live on that devil box.
Yes. No, they would catch me at like midnight in my room playing my Nintendo, and they would be so mad. But now, yeah, it's weird now thinking of the difference. Like, you know, the old meme of, you can't tell your mom or for some reason, your mom never believes that you can't pause an online game. Like, we're the opposite of those parents. Like, we get video games. And so we're always like, oh yeah, no, honey, go ahead and finish this level, and then we'll brush our teeth and get to bed.
Speaking of Sony's classic exclusives, they have been receiving a lot of attention in the last few years. On top of the Insane trilogy, the Spyro franchise also released the Reignited title, which highlighted a trilogy of remastered Spyro games, and the Jak and Daxter trilogy was remastered and re-released on the PS4. Are there any other classic games you guys think developers might cash in on in the near future? It's been 4 years since a Ratchet & Clank title. The Jak and Daxter remake is reportedly going to be a PS5 launch title, so maybe we'll get a Jak 4?
Please. Please. I want a Jak 4 so badly. You don't understand.
I remember playing Oddworld with my wife way back. I think it was Munch's Odyssey. This was, man, early 2000s. We were at Fort Benning. I was a brand new lieutenant, and we had some time to kill, and we played Oddworld together. We played a bunch of games together.
When T and I were still in diapers.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Probably 2003, 2002, sometime around
I was
there.
in like first grade or kindergarten or something.
I was 3.
So no diapers.
You don't
Maybe
know
diapers? I don't know. I'm not judging. I don't know your lives. But I actually looked up Oddworld because I hadn't heard about it in so long. And I was like, man, we really dug that just because it was so silly and stupid and fun. But there have been some new games that have come out. In fact, this year, an Oddworld Soulstorm, but I haven't looked into it. I'm probably not going to play it, but I remember, like, that was a lot of fun for us. How things change.
I like how you say that, like, it was just silly and fun, but, like, isn't that one of the games where you find out that the meat packing plant you're working for is using its workers as the new mystery meat?
Yes.
Oh, God. Oh, wow.
I think that's the plot.
I played that game once, man. It stuck with me.
It was the goofy protagonist. Like, the alien that you play as is goofy and silly and fun, and, like, I don't know, even that, like, super dark concept, like, in that framing, it seems comical almost.
That reminds me of how Jak and Daxter was like super lighthearted and campy and fun, and then Jak 2 was so edgy. They added guns and like dark mode, and it was crazy. Those mid-2000s, man. Good times.
Just want to play Sly Cooper again.
A Sly Cooper remake would be fun. I remember as soon as the remake for the Jak trilogy came out on PS4, I bought it, played through the whole thing. Didn't play the racing game because why bother? But yeah, I would love a Jak 4 so much because it's also like I criticized earlier the other games for being like not super deep and story driven, but the Jak and Daxter series past the first one are actually really heavy on story, and they're really well written.
I also remember enjoying Earthworm Jim from way back, but I don't, like, it wasn't a PlayStation exclusive. It's just, it kind of fits the Crash Bandicoot theme in my head. Like,
Yeah, I can see that.
it's a silly, campy, like, it doesn't try to get too deep into itself. Like, it's just for fun and goofs and laughs. And I remember enjoying playing Earthworm Jim too. The last thing I can see when I look up Earthworm Jim is 2010. So that's been a while.
You guys ever played Destroy All Humans?
No, I've heard about it.
That was a game where you could just go around trying to abduct random things.
What's the premise of that? Obviously, abducting all humans.
I'll be
you see,
completely honest with you.
You destroy all humans.
I'll be completely honest with you. That is all I remember about the game because I don't think I ever actually tried to play it. I was just really amused by going around and picking up random cows.
That's basically how I played Ratchet and Clank as a kid.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could have figured out the plot if I'd tried, but I did not try.
Fun fact, the first Ratchet and Clank is the first game I ever actually beat.
Okay,
Oh, that actually is a milestone because
Yeah.
that's a very different thing from the game you've played.
Yep.
I think the first game I ever beat was KOTOR 2, which I think explains a lot about me.
Makes sense.
Certainly your obsession, maybe.
Perhaps.
I'd say like 90% of the games I've played, I haven't beaten. I haven't even bothered.
All those 100%ers out there just listening, looking down on us.
I mean, I finished the story in most games, but like I'm not going for all the. I'm not trying to get the achievements. Why bother?
Oh, see, I'm the opposite. I am a completionist, but I get bored like some part way through. I'm like, nah, I'm done.
I'm
I've
100%.
gotten all I'm gonna get from this.
I'm 100%er of the first 20% of the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, these classic games, whether you're buying them for the 5th time or for the first, have been a staple of console gaming for ages. And, like we've really just said, for a lot of us younger gamers, they were our first titles. Given the partnership a lot of these characters and the classics that spawned them have with active distributors, it's unlikely we'll see an end to nostalgic re-releases anytime soon, but at least it's not a live-action version. This is probably a lion we should have left sleeping. But The Lion King is one of Disney's most classic animated features from the Silver Age of animation. And its live-action adaptation was not taken as an instant classic. Despite an all-star cast, critics rated the movie very unfavorably, averaging at around a 55% mark, while fans were a little more lenient and gave it up to an 88%. The main critique fans presented was the lack of emotion in the character's animation, due to the overly realistic approach taken by director Jon Favreau. Despite this critique, go figure, a sequel is inbound. The first major question is, what is it about? All that's been stated so far is that we can expect more music, and that the story will have something to do with looking back on Mufasa's origin story. The original animation did have several sequels, so do you guys think any of them will be created for this CGI sequel, or are we getting an original story?
I don't know if Leo can relate to this, but while we were talking about being, kids earlier, T, do you remember as a kid having like a few movies that you just rewatched like 1,700 times?
Oh yes.
So one of those movies
I
for
can
me.
relate to that.
Wow,
I'm
really?
not,
You?
I'm not
You had
old
movies when you
enough
were a
to
kid?
not have movies that I could have watched as a child.
Were they in
Okay.
black and white?
This one was not.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, one of those movies for me was Lion King 1.5, which is a terrible movie, but it was so funny to me as a kid.
That is that's the one with Timon and Pumbaa's
Yeah.
version, right?
Yeah, so it's basically a retelling of Lion King, but from Timon and Pumbaa's perspective. So you get their origin story and how they met, and then everything they were doing while Simba was off being a hero. And it's really dumb, but it's pretty funny. I'm pretty certain that that's not what this movie is going to be. I'm thinking, based on what I've heard, especially the Mufasa origin story stuff, it's probably going to be an original story, I think.
Okay. So my movie that I watched as a kid was the old Disney Sword in the Stone. where Arthur was called Wart for a while, and he met Merlin, and he got turned into a bunch of different animals. Have you guys seen it? It's a classic.
Madam Mim.
Yes, it's a great movie. I still like it, but
I've seen neither of those.
Oh no, Madam Mim. She's a character in The Sword and the Stone. Anywho, great movie, but I can't watch it. I've seen it like 1,000 times, and I remember coming home from coming home from school, and insisting that my parents pop in it was a VHS tape. My wife had a similar experience with the Aladdin cartoon. Like, she just wanted to watch it over and over and over and over. Anywho, so I saw a very interesting theory, and a very interesting proposal that I think would actually be really good for this. I think it has to be an original story, partly because of what you brought up, Sihl, about Lion King 1.5, that all the sequels, as far as I know, were like straight to DVD. Like they weren't put out in theaters. They weren't these huge Disney productions. Not necessarily that, I won't say Disney isn't proud of them, but let's just say Disney didn't have a lot of faith in their box office power.
No, I think that's fair. Animated sequels rarely ever get a lot of attention from Disney.
Well, yeah, I agree. That's true.
Except for Frozen 2.
I've seen both Frozens. I thought they were both really good in their own regard. Anywho, the theory that I really liked, that I think would be a really good story, is the continuation of Simba, his story as, the leader of the pack, and flashbacks to Mufasa's origin and the linking of those two, because a good bit of Simba's story was trying to live up to Mufasa's example, and I think it would be a really good story to see where Mufasa wasn't always the kind of wise old lion that he was portrayed as in the first Lion King, to see him stumble the same way Simba stumbles. And I think that would actually be a very compelling way to tell that story, to show how, they're each having to learn how to be the lion that they aspire to be.
So based on that theory, do you think that the Simba part of that story might have to do with what was in Lion King 2 with his daughter?
You are assuming that I have watched any of them, and I have not.
I don't remember any of it other than he has a daughter, and she runs off with some bad lion.
It's basically Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, essentially.
Oh, interesting. No,
the original Lion King is just a retelling of Hamlet.
Oh, no, you're getting way too cerebral here, T.
Listen, the one that I watched on loop was Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, so...
Spirit Stallion of the what?
I don't even know what you just said.
Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. It is a story about a wild horse that has a bond with the Native American as they...
I do know that movie!
Yeah, as they reject the capitalistic cowboy invasion of the Midwest.
Oh, no. I've never seen that. Interesting.
Also, apparently younger me was really obsessed with Frosty the Snowman to the point where I broke it, and they had to throw out the entire VHS player to get me to stop watching it. But I don't remember that. So.
My parents got to the point where, it was just an eye roll, and they would just hand me the tape, or just say yes, and then they would leave the room and go do something else, while I watched however long, 90 minutes of The Sword and the Stone.
Alright, well, according to reports from Digital Spy, Jon Favreau will not be returning to take the lead on the Lion King sequel. Instead, allegedly, Moonlight writer and director Barry Jenkins will be taking over as the director of the film. Do you think Jenkins will act on some of the negative critiques presented to the first film and make it more enjoyable for fans? Keep in mind, it's already been reported that they will continue using the photorealistic animation, despite one of the original 1994 film's animators, David Steffen, being open about his distaste for the appearance of the film.
Didn't the live-action Lion King make an absurd amount of money, like $1 billion?
Oh yeah.
Okay, they had Beyonce.
I mean,
well, yeah. I think they're going to try to get Beyonce again. I can't imagine they wouldn't. But if you have something that has been, quote, criticized, but still makes $1 billion, I mean, no. Why would you change anything other than, make a better story, a further story? I don't know.
Well, I think that going into the first quote-unquote live action, people went to see it for the same reason people bought Crash Bandicoot 4, for nostalgia. They know Lion King, they're going to go see the Lion King again. But like, now people saw it, the people who didn't like it, and I think that them doing it again, making something new, people are going to know ahead of time now, like, oh, I don't like how it looks, so maybe I won't go see it. That said, I don't think it would hurt their sales enough that they would need to change it in order to do better, but I don't know, maybe.
I will only say I have been, when it comes to a lot of the review sites that I'm privy to, where there's a difference between quote professional reviewers and the quote audience, I have sided with the quote audience every time in recent memory. And as the quote professional reviewers have taken issue or not with various things, I have found them to be either politically motivated, or they've been there's some other issue at play than whether or not this is a good movie that people enjoy. And in this case, the fact that the quote audience, 88%, it's not perfect, but it is pretty good. I think they have a good recipe. And I think it would be silly to change it now.
Yeah, I think you have a very good point. I'm going to add on to that and say that there is a third party, in my opinion, that people overlook when it comes to critiquing films, and that is people within the industry. I don't consider professional, quote-unquote, professional critics to be part of the same mindset or part of the same group as people who are actual filmmakers, actually in the industry, who might have their own critiques of movies. Animators, like David Steffen, I assume is how his name is pronounced, I would consider him part of the industry, and the fact that he doesn't like how it looks means something to me. But that said, I'm going to fall back on something I say often, the difference between good and entertaining movies. I think The Lion King was fine. I don't think it was exceptionally good, but I don't think it was bad at all. I think it was a fine movie, and it was definitely entertaining. So, yeah, all in all, I think you're right. They probably don't need to change anything to make money.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with your point. There's a big difference between a good movie and an entertaining movie, totally. And I know I have my own guilty pleasures of movies that I think are bad, but that I still love because I'm just entertained by them. Most of them are stupid, idiotic comedies, and my wife cannot understand why I enjoy, because I'm usually so critical of media. But yeah, that's certainly my guilty pleasure. But I do agree that there certainly are some fundamental elements of movies that can make them as a film bad but still entertaining, and that I agree could skew some of that score. But I don't know, professional quote critics, they're not folks whose opinion I value anymore. I find them nonsensical.
I completely agree with you. Having gone through film school and working in the indie film industry in my area, I think I've learned to not really take critics seriously, but at the same time, I also really don't take fan reviews very seriously. because, and this may be controversial to fans, but I don't think fans know the difference between good and entertaining. I think for the most part, people are entertained by a movie, and to them, that's worth 100% review. And I don't agree with that at all. And I think that you probably don't either, Leo. You like you said, you're very critical of media, even if you like it most of the time. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a little too pompous, but I don't really take anybody's critiques super seriously unless they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But the truth is, I'm a layman. Like, I don't know anything about film production. I just have the things I think I know, like about silly stuff, like human nature. Oh, somebody wouldn't do that. Or, I mean, the military I do know. So, like, if I see military movies, I'm like, oh, there's no way that would happen, or blah, blah, blah. Like, I get really judgy about stuff I think I know about. Lions? I don't know. I don't know anything about lions. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm more forgiving because of that. My own acknowledged ignorance of the subject.
You guys know my taste in movies. I'm not even going to try. But speaking of its cast, that was one of the most well-liked parts of the 2019 film. They included big stars like James Earl Jones, Beyonce, Seth Rogen, Billy Eichner, and a big-time favorite of Sihls, Donald Glover. Given that Lion King is pretty centralized around its signature characters, are we likely to see most of these big stars return? Or do you think we're gonna have to take it down a notch for a sequel?
No, I think there's already been a big budget planned, and I think it's in large part because of the actors or voice actors.
Yeah, I mean, James Earl Jones, 100%. Especially if it's a Mufasa origin story, he'll be back. I think Donald Glover and Beyonce are most likely going to be back. Man, anytime we end up talking about Donald Glover, Zendaya, or Idris Elba, I'm just gonna be sitting here like, yes.
I remember it's Zendaya.
yeah. God, I can't believe you guys said Zendaya. Shame on you.
As a general reminder to anyone who listens to this podcast, I don't pronounce anyone's name right. So if I mangled yours or someone you know, I'm so terribly sorry.
She's called me Leo so many times. It's crazy.
It's pretty hard to mispronounce a one-syllable name, so I haven't had that problem. But no, yeah, all the biggest names will definitely be back. I don't know. It's possible we won't get John Oliver as what is his name, Zazu. Is that how you say his name?
I don't know. I never saw it.
Anyway.
I literally just said I can't pronounce names.
Fair enough. The Bird, whatever his name is. I don't know that we'll get John Oliver back. It's possible we won't get Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner again. I don't know. It depends on which characters they put into it, especially if it is an original story. But I would be shocked if we don't get Beyonce and Donald Glover back.
This seems like Disney is putting a whole lot of budget and a whole lot of let's say resources into this sequel, and because the original, like, how do I say this? This isn't the modern day straight to DVD sequel that we used to see. This is the modern day straight to theater sequel,
post Star Wars and Marvel era for sure.
And I think as they're putting this kind of budget and this kind of emphasis on this, I don't see any justification for that other than attracting these names. There isn't anything more expensive than that in the production of something like this.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It's not a one and done system anymore. They're open to franchises now.
They've realized if you hit the cash cow again, it gives them more money.
Beat the dead horse.
I think it depends on how you hit it. I think they hit it in the wrong spot with Star Wars.
But they did get the money.
Yeah,
and that's what matters.
Yeah.
Alright, well, little news has been announced so far other than a vague leaked plot from Deadline, and the movie is not yet slated for production or for release, so it'll be a while before we get details on the questions we've posed today, or whether or not it's an original story, really, because I didn't know Disney did those anymore. But It's just the circle of life. Ever since the release of Google Stadia, the question of success has been hard to define. For some of us classic console or PC gamers, the idea of streaming your games instead of owning them in some way is a little confusing, but for those who have taken the dip into Stadia, there's been some pretty positive reviews. Android Authority referred to Stadia as the future of gaming if you have the data for it. All this said, Amazon has been working their way up to making game streaming a competitive market. Way back in April, Amazon pushed their official announcement of Project Tempo, their own game streaming service, to 2021. But late last month, they came out with it a little earlier than expected. The service, now officially titled Luna, is a competitor to Stadia, in which games will be streamed without the necessity of downloading, and will apparently be playable on PC, Mac, and iOS. Do you think competition for Stadia will end up making game streaming a better service over time?
I am. I don't know if I call myself a capitalist. I don't think that's a good word, but I do think that competition, when it comes to corporations, in fact, when it comes to just any type of organized group of people, competition is one of the best ways to ensure that those multiple and quote competing groups bring their best to the table. Without competition, there is the propensity to grow lazy and to grow complacent. And I think I have some experience working for the US government, for instance, and there is no competitor to the US government when it comes to a lot of the services that they provide. So in some sense, I have been really disillusioned with a lack of competition. I find competition fantastic for requiring groups to hone what it is that they want to provide.
I think the entire Gen Z audience we have just cringed when you said capitalism.
Without a doubt.
Commercialist, but not a capitalist.
I don't know what the term is, but yeah.
No, I know what you mean. I do agree with you. I think competition is good for an open market. I don't know that competition is going to help game streaming as much as maybe people are hoping it will, because I feel like the main problem with game streaming is just that classic PC console gamers just don't want to be a part of it, I think. At least that's my issue in particular, and I know that that's the issue some people who I've spoken with about it have as well, is just like the fact that you don't own your games. The fact that you're paying a monthly subscription service to play a limited series of titles, it's just not worth it. I do think the limitation on titles might get better over time, but like then what happens? Do you have to subscribe to all of them like you do with Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus to see everything? If you want to play everything, you have to have all of them. Like what does it become ultimately?
There's something to that, but I don't know. Like I remember I used to game a lot with my father-in-law, for instance, a different generation from my own, who has I would say a near obsession to like owning the cartridge or the disc of the game that he's playing. And that wasn't an issue for me at all when it came to just downloading games from services like Steam. I'm totally okay with downloading a game and playing it, whereas he had to have the disc. Like it was hard for him to let go of that. I'm not sure he ever really has. For me, I don't know, like being able to download something is fine for me. And I think as the generations do, we simply become more accustomed to whatever is the technological norm of the day. And if it is true that this is the way gaming is going, and it may very well be, which it does seem odd to me, but the truth is, I know my father-in-law found it really odd that I was willing to just download a game instead of have a disc or a cartridge. But this may be the direction things are going, and if that's so, competition is only going to make it better. So I don't know, we'll see.
I do think it was probably around like maybe 2009 or 10. There was like a huge shift from hardware to just download gaming, digital gaming rather. Like back in the day they did all the like pre-order, like you get you pre-order Halo, you get like this helmet or whatever.
Yeah.
And like that used to be the thing, you collect stuff. Everyone wanted stuff. Yep. But for some reason, as the digital age progressed, I guess people just stopped caring about stuff. So
well, how much room do you have?
No, yeah, like... I mean that's true. At some point, you just stop caring about stuff. I think that's more of an age thing, but I don't know. I think it's also become that way for younger people as well. Like kids play games all the time, obviously, and they don't want stuff either. They'd rather have the digital pre-order bonuses.
I've honestly never been interested in like a physical object. I got a T-shirt from ESO one time for entering a contest of theirs, and yeah, I wear it because it's a T-shirt and it fits my let's say inflating body. But like if it was like a figurine, like what in the world am I going to do with that? I'd much rather have something in the game that I'm playing, because all of that stuff is transient and temporary. The fact that I like a game now, yeah, I might always like that game, but I'm not always going to be playing it. I don't want something permanent for it. I think gamers have realized that, especially with, I don't know if it's necessarily a generational thing, as it is just a huge and diverse group of options. Like there's so many games we can play, and the idea of having something physical for those we're most attached to seems kind of silly, because it's a lot of games.
I think it's also worth mentioning that, and I don't know if this is like a generational thing or like an era thing, but I think we're getting more and more used to the idea that we don't actually own a lot of the things that we own, whether that's mortgages, car payments. Like, we don't technically own this thing that we have on a payment process, because technically the bank owns it. So, what's not owning a couple of video games?
Or credit union, if you're smart about it.
All our young listeners, all our young listeners are just like, what's happening?
Leo, I've never paid taxes. Don't make me pretend to be an adult.
But no, I mean, that's a good point too. Although, I don't know. I don't know how different that is than previous generations. Like, my parents have had to deal with mortgages and car loans and stuff, as have my generation, as has yours.
It could also go the other way, where it's like we're used to not owning other things, so like we really don't want to lose this one thing.
It's possible. Yeah.
Maybe.
It is, however, unfair to call Stadia the only competitor Amazon is going up against, considering Microsoft's xCloud platform. Microsoft is the first of these three tech giants to dive into gaming, which they did ages ago at this point, so they have the established connections with developers and distributors already that allow xCloud to have a wider variety of games. Given Amazon's recent attempts to get into gaming, albeit with some difficulties in the market, do you think they or Google will ever be able to properly compete with the company that just bought out Bethesda?
Think so.
I don't know. I think I mean, I said it last week. There's three gaming giants, right? And that's Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. I think Nintendo's never going to get into game streaming unless they do it themselves, most likely. I have to say the only way that Google or Amazon could ever properly compete with Microsoft is if they get Sony on their side. Otherwise, they're just going to keep working with whatever Microsoft will let them have, or just third-party developers.
I agree with that. Nintendo kind of has their own weird thing going on. Not weird. That's not the right word.
They're just kind of on their own.
It's a different thing. Yeah. You see Microsoft and Sony neck and neck. Every time, well, they're constantly in competition. They're releasing consoles within months of each other. Like, they're constantly warring for superiority in the gaming world. Amazon is dipping its toe into gaming. They're developing games. I'm actually I'm psyched. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm trying not to get so hyped that I become disappointed. But they're developing another Lord of the Rings MMO. Oh my goodness, am I hopeful for that? Not that Amazon necessarily knows what they're doing, because I'm not sure they do, but I'm hoping they learn important lessons along the way up to that point to actually do that game justice. Lord of the Rings is my favorite genre, my favorite whatever universe. I so hope that that's a thing. Anywho, the point is, Amazon has the money to be a competitor to Microsoft and Sony. Amazon, I think if anyone can do it, it's Amazon. I'm hoping that their toe dipping into gaming has been enough to equip them, and perhaps this push is their next toe in the water. This is a lesson that they're going to learn, but I'm hoping that they do provide some competition. They're well positioned to do it, I think, simply because, honestly, they're making more money than they know what to do with right now. Particularly with like nobody going outside, everybody just ordering stuff online. Please, Amazon, do this right and do it well.
I don't know that they will or they can. I think like you said, they've been dipping their toes in. Hopefully they're learning from it, but Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, third-party developers, they've all been around for years, and some of them don't do it right. ZeniMax was having money troubles before Microsoft bought them out, but they've been around for ages. They know what gamers want. They know how to make what gamers want, and clearly Amazon's toe dipping so far has not been super helpful, or well, I don't know, maybe it's been helpful to them, but it hasn't been super popular. And I don't know, to be fair, I guess you learn more from your failures than your successes, right? So maybe it's good for them, but we'll see.
If you're smart about it. I hope they're smart about it.
That's true. And I mean, Amazon is a fairly smart company. I mean, they make a hell of a lot of money, so I guess we'll see.
Ridiculous sums of money.
We did talk about Stadia a while back and basically said the same thing, that we'd try it after some time, but we weren't really committed to it. It's been some time. Do you guys think you'll give Luna a shot, if not Stadia or xCloud?
Probably not. After all that.
Honestly, same. Probably not. Maybe another, I don't know, when that competition grows and hopefully makes the market better, and odds are it's going to be like Netflix and all that, where maybe over a longer period of time, consoles and PC will, or at least the classic way we game on those platforms, will maybe die out, and this will be all we have left. So when that happens, sure. Till then, probably not.
Yeah, I really don't like, honestly, the idea of just the concept of gaming like this. It all comes down to how fast is your internet. Even a game that wouldn't normally be restricted that way is still restricted that way with this design.
Yeah.
And I find I live not in the boonies, but I live far enough outside of metropolitan area.
Same.
That my internet is not as good as I'd like it to be. So there's no way I would do this.
Yeah, T said it perfectly earlier. Android Authority called it the future of gaming if you have the data for it, and I don't think most Americans do.
Right. I agree. I think that will change over time.
Yeah.
Eventually, more people will get there, but I'm not there.
Yeah.
So basically, what we're saying is we'll play Fortnite on Stadia.
Yeah, I'll commit to that right now. Sure.
Right? Yeah, I'll commit to that.
We'll commit to never actually doing it.
Exactly.
The subscription gaming service is currently in early access for $5.99 a month, and Amazon is going to be releasing a custom controller of their own to match. No reviews are published so far, but games announced for Luna as of yet include Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Resident Evil 7, Watch Dogs Legion, and a few more notable titles that I'm sure we'll talk about eventually. It's tea time, boys, and I have potentially the strangest question I've ever asked. Is there a sequel out there that is better than the original?
This is not the strangest question you've ever asked.
Do you say that only because I just reminded you about the one question about the Hulk and bees?
Yes.
Okay.
But I stand by my statement.
Okay, the most impossible question I've ever asked.
No, I don't think it's impossible at all. Terminator 2 is superior to Terminator.
I agree with that completely.
I think that it's the best movie in the entire Terminator timeline.
Judgment Day? Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I do think that as a sequel, that's better than the original. As far as movies go, for games, it's a kind of a different animal because so much changes between games.
That's true. I feel like that's an easier question to answer with games.
I agree. What do you got, Sihl?
Well, I mean, going back to Jak and Daxter from earlier, Jak 3 is the best one in the series by far. Mass Effect 2 is the best Mass Effect game.
Oh, I'm way out of my depth with both of those.
I don't know. I mean, I've only played Witcher 3, but as far as I've heard, it's probably the best one in the series.
I was gonna say for games, Witcher 3 better than Witcher 2, which was better than The Witcher. Witcher 3 is magnificent. But I think it's a little easier with games.
It definitely is.
You get improved technology. You can make games better, and you can improve mechanics. And I think even just the modes of storytelling are a little better in games as time progresses. Like you get weird little things like, do the NPC you're talking to, are they going to be voice acted? Well, that's something modern games have that older games don't. Okay, if they're voice acted, do the avatars of those characters, like, do they speak? Like, do their mouths move as if they're speaking those words? Well, that's a much more modern facet of gaming. And I think those all kind of coalesce to make a game, quote, better. So
Portal 2, Fallout New Vegas, Oblivion.
Yeah, yep.
All sequels, all best in their franchises, in my opinion,
agreed.
at least.
But for gaming, it's hard not to do that. I think movies is tougher.
I think you're spot on. I have one that's not a movie or a game. So I have an HBO Max subscription, and
for the skin flicks, yeah.
Okay. No, for the cool shows, man.
Sure, yeah, no, me too.
And one such show, they have a bunch of Cartoon Network stuff on there, so I've been rewatching some of my old cartoons that I grew up with. And the one I'm on right now is the Ben 10 series. The first Ben 10 show is very much for kids. It's super childish. It has an overarching story to a degree, but the episodes are all super, episodic. And that overarching story doesn't really connect as much as it should. However, the show it's been rebooted a bunch, but I'm only going to bother with the more connected reboots, the first 2 reboots. And the first one is called Ben 10 Alien Force. And it's a slightly more adult show. The characters are a little older. It basically takes the Ben 10 original show and is like, hey, this happened, but also some of the stuff didn't happen. Not all of it's canon. So they do defy the canon a little bit, and it's the original creator even said it's more of a reboot than a sequel, but it's treated like a sequel, and I think it's significantly better.
Interesting. I've not followed Ben 10 outside of, just watching it as it's on like the Cartoon Network with my kids. It seems like it has the potential to be an interesting show, but I think I've only ever seen the ones you cited as like more for kids. I might be interested to see the more grown-up versions, because it looks like a cool concept.
It is a cool concept. Like, it's definitely a kids show. Even the later reboot ones are, it's a kids show for sure, but like they tackle slightly more adult topics. It has a much better connected storyline. Like, I'm halfway through Alien Force right now. I just finished the first season, and the whole first season has one storyline that they keep following. And even though the episodes are episodic, they all circle back, except for like 2 episodes are non-canon.
Yeah, interesting. I might have to check it out. That sounds cool.
It's pretty interesting. What about you, T?
I mean, like, I can list a couple things. Like, I liked whatever the Transformers movie was with the dinosaurs in it.
Ew, why?
Better than the original Transformers. I don't know why. I just brain liked sparkly things going off.
I don't agree with you, but I respect your opinion.
I didn't. All right, it was one of those. It was entertaining. It wasn't good.
Okay, there you go.
That's fair.
I won't. Yeah.
To be fair, none of the Transformers movies are actually good.
Yeah, no. In terms of comparative markets, the bar is low.
Super low.
I mean, I can say that Empire Strikes Back was better than A New Hope.
Oh, yes.
Accurate.
Totally agreed.
I agree with you on Mass Effect. I think 2 was the best of the Mass Effect games. I also think that KOTOR 2 was better than KOTOR 1.
I believe that was the first video game you finished, so
it was.
That makes sense.
It was also another one of Obsidian's games, and they also made Fallout New Vegas.
Which is the best Fallout.
Everything Obsidian touches thrives.
Ooh, our UPM Danny just said The Dark Knight, which is absolutely the best of the Christopher Nolan trilogy.
What I was really trying to think of is I don't know if you guys have read them, the Dresden Files.
I've heard of it.
I don't remember if I read them or watched them. I think I was watching them.
Honestly, I always forget that there was actually like a television show for a little while.
Yeah. They were okay.
Because I would definitely say the later books in that series are probably better than the original, but I enjoyed them all anyway.
It was really interesting. I remember being rather fascinated by the concept. Underwhelmed by this show, but I had heard that the books were much better.
As is normally the case.
Yeah. On the topic of books, here's how you know I'm a doomer. I read the first 5 Percy Jackson books. And none of the ones after that.
Oh no, I kept going.
Oh really? Why? I tried. I was like, nah, I can't do it. Fair enough. The 5th book in that series is incredible.
It is.
I've read none of them. I watched the first movie.
Oh, and no.
Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, man. I was not. I wasn't happy with myself.
There's a reason that series didn't continue in movies.
Okay.
We watched. So I watched the Percy Jackson movie with my dad because he knew I'd read the books or whatever, right? I think we got 10 minutes into the movie. We turned off the audio and we started making up our own dialogue to try and figure out what was going on.
That's the way to do it.
And that was a much better movie.
That's how you have to watch that movie. That sounds great.
How do you cut Clarice out of the book or out of the movie?
Oh.
She's so vital.
I don't even know who Clarice is.
Nah, so. It doesn't matter.
If you would like to submit a tea time question for the podcast, or hey, even if you just think that we're wrong or we missed the best sequel, head on over to sokengaming.org/sokenmedia and find the submission bar on the right-hand side of the page. Thank you everyone for tuning in to this episode of the Soken podcast. For more Soken Media, visit us at sokengaming.org/sokenmedia, follow our Twitter @sokengaming, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Soken Gaming Community. And look for future episodes of the podcast on Google Podcasts and iTunes. Until next time, I've been T.
Leo.
And I'm Sihl, and it still doesn't work with one syllable, so I'm not going to bother.
I mean, it doesn't work for me either, but I try.
Sihl and
Ugh.
low. I don't know. I tried. There wasn't much to work with. But we'll see you next week.
Stay classy, Sokan.
Thank you for listening to the Sokan Community Podcast. Craving more? Visit us on Twitter and YouTube at Sokan Gaming, as well as our website, www.sokangaming.com. Until next time, stay classy. Right, Jace?